Hey, it's time for Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. They're coming to us live from Microsoft Ignite, where Azure is getting bigger, Outlook is getting smarter, and Mary Jo hits Paul. Also, Windows hits 400 million users, OneDrive gets placeholders back, and Office 365 gets analytical. Windows Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 485, recorded September 28, 2016, live from Microsoft Ignite. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you fresh, high-quality ingredients to cook delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. And by Igloo Software. Igloo is an internet you'll actually like. It connects people with the information they need to do their best work. Try it for free at igloosoftware.com/twit. or sign up for a live demo to see it in action. It's time for Windows Weekly. It's the show that sticks in your brain like a Windows 10 nag screen. I'm Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit, in for Leo Laporte, who is currently on a boat. But of course, it's a special edition because we've got Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. They are bringing the fire to Microsoft Ignite. Mary Jo, Paul, so good to see you. You're in some sort of corridor?
Yeah. It's a connector.
It's a connector.
I'm not sure what that means. At some point, you're going to have to tell me. But you look good. You sound good. And it's nice to have you straight from one of the biggest Microsoft events of the year. Tell me, for the folks who maybe have never watched Windows Weekly and are joining us for this show, what is Microsoft Ignite supposed to be?
Wow.
What is it supposed to be? What it is the biggest show in the world for IT pros.
Yes.
20,000 people. 25,000 people.
Yep.
All of them crammed into this room off of a small hallway between 2 gigantic conference centers.
Yep.
2 of the 3.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be the latest
It's the
launch?
show for everything. It's like the show for all Microsoft technologies. Windows, SharePoint, Hadoop, everything. Everything you would like in one show, no Xbox.
Oh, wait. No Xbox. So why is Paul there?
I don't know, actually.
There was a small bit of OneDrive news this week that justified my traveling here.
Yes. Yep.
Now, every year at Ignite, you always seem to be walking away with takeaways, the things that you liked the most. And you've just had a little bit of time, and I understand that it was a late night because Mary Jo Foley decided that you needed to try every craft beer in Atlanta. But what have been the big ticket items so far?
I mean, big picture, I would almost say security.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. Yep. Security, artificial intelligence, machine learning as part of that as well.
Well, the transformation to the cloud.
Right.
It's kind of ongoing.
Definitely. Yep. So I feel like the messaging here is Microsoft's, of course, all in on the cloud, all in on security, all in on SharePoint. I have to keep going back to SharePoint.
Who doesn't?
Everyone.
But I think, security across the stack, right? I mean, I think that's the big deal. It's not just client-side security. It's not just server cloud-side security. It's security even in the fabric.
Right, so hybrid. The other message was hybrid.
Yeah.
And what Microsoft means by hybrid cloud. And I think what Microsoft means by hybrid cloud is a little more comprehensive than some of the other cloud vendors.
I found a new way to get Julia White excited. You could say, hybrid is just connectivity, right?
Oh, no. That would get her very agitated. Yes.
Yeah.
Has there been much talk about Windows
Xbox?
10 Internet of Things edition?
No.
No.
Not a little, but not a lot. No.
No, I mean, actually, it really hasn't been a lot of Windows 10 per se. There was obviously there's some security enhancements in the anniversary update. There's some coming things as well.
Right.
Edge is getting some sort of security isolation technology that may or may not eventually make its way to other apps and other browsers.
Yes, that was codename Barcelona. Did you know that?
Yeah, well,
Now
thanks
you
to
do.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting feature because it's supposed to use containers in Windows 10 in the browser to isolate possible malicious attacks and be able to kind of like detonate those to the side. So very, very interesting technology. Something we've heard rumored. I actually thought it might have been in the previous version of Windows 10. Never made it, so it's looking like Redstone 2. Yeah.
Right. Spring.
Whatever that really means. Yeah.
Some of the news has, of course, been trickling back here from the day one keynote when Scott Goo he officially made the announcement that Windows 10 is now on 400 million devices. But how solid of a number do you find that? I mean, of course, we've dropped down from the initial target of 1 billion devices by the end of the year. Now, will they make 500 million before we hit the end of the holiday season?
Oh, that's interesting.
I think so. Do you?
No, I mean, well, so at the current clip, no, but of course you do see a seasonal bump because of the holiday selling season.
Machines,
so it's possible. They don't have that kind of a goal, right? They were talking about 1 billion active PCs or active devices by 2018, and that's moved out a bit, obviously, since the original proclamation, which I'm sure they regret. But they still do plan and do expect to get to 1 billion active devices.
Around that time, or slightly later perhaps than that, but they still are saying 1 billion, yes.
Right. I would be surprised if they hit it by 500 million by the end of the year. I don't think so.
Would that count devices that have been upgraded and then downgraded and upgraded several times?
Yeah, those get counted twice.
Okay, because I've got like 15 devices on this laptop.
No, actually, so it's interesting, as you move from selling software in a store, where you can say, look, we shipped X number of these boxes, to counting something that it seems a little more nebulous, which is monthly average users, or in Windows 10's case, active devices, right? This is actually an instance where this is a more meaningful real-world number because it's instances of the operating system running and being used actively. It's actual users, right? In the past, when Microsoft used to sell 20 million Windows 7 licenses a month, and it was sort of like sell, it was a real sale. It was something they could put down in the books. But those things were not necessarily brought up and running that month. In fact, most of them probably were not that month, right? That's the nature of that style of accounting, right? And so I think for normal people, for people just sort of looking for something that is a real world metric, active users is a great, or active devices, I should say, is a really good one for Windows 10.
Yep.
An accurate one.
Agree. It does make it a little hard to compare it to previous versions and how they were doing at this point, because with Windows 7, they weren't talking about active users. It was a different metric. So I think this is a good metric. I think it means, people are actually using it versus just have it on a shelf somewhere and maybe one day.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Or maybe running some other version, right? Because a lot of times, Windows 7 days, it's a little hard to imagine they would have gone back to Vista, but a lot of businesses might have been running Windows XP. In other words, what they're buying is a Windows 7 license because that's what Microsoft is selling, but you get downgrade rights on that license, and they might have gone back to an earlier version of the OS. So it's kind of hard to tell from those numbers how many people were actually using it, which is why usage share numbers from net market share or whatever are kind of interesting. And Microsoft can look at how many machines are hitting Windows Update every day or whatever and get figures that way as well.
Would there be a better way to count this? I mean, is there a better metric that they could be collecting that shows actual engaged Windows 10 users?
Actually, when you get into so active sort of does mean engaged, I guess.
I think it does.
I think for Windows, this is the most accurate way to gauge the success of this thing. I think this is the way to go. They don't do this with everything else. One of the things, we sort of complain about because we try to understand the health of Microsoft's various businesses is they have different ways of judging the success of different businesses or different products. When the Xbox One fell behind the PlayStation 4, for example, they stopped telling us how many of these things they sold. And now they talk about engagement, which is things like number of hours spent on Xbox Live, number of hours spent playing games against other people, whatever these things are. And I think those numbers have their value. But unlike with Windows, I sort of feel like unit sales mean something because this is a retail product and they literally are shipping boxes. And a sale is a sale. I think those kind of things make sense. But obviously they have they're accounting for things in different ways depending on the product or service.
Have either of you been able to play at all or see a demo of one of the technologies that was announced at Ignite? And that is that Edge is going to run in a micro VM. So not a regular VM, but a very lightweight VM that should sandbox it off completely from the rest of your system. I mean, I'm actually excited by this. I saw a demonstration of similar technology that was released over at the Intel Developer Forum, and I couldn't believe how far they'd come. It was so fast to load. It was basically a 15 millisecond delay over what you would get just starting the app. Is that hitting the floor? Can you actually see it, or are we still sort of in the pre-announcement stage?
I don't think it's even out to,
Right.
It's going to come out to insiders first, and it hasn't come out to them yet. So I don't think, unless there's some simulation demo somewhere here, I don't think so.
Yeah, so it's an RS2 feature. It's something
Right.
that's going to come in the spring. It's something, like I said earlier, it's something that's probably going to come to other applications in Windows and third-party apps and also third-party browsers,
Right.
which is where it starts to get interesting, frankly. Not because I don't feel that Edge is ever going to have meaningful usage share, but you want to protect the whole
Right.
range of users, obviously.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's something that happens quickly as well.
Yeah. If you go back and you look at what Microsoft's done in this space, there were all these Microsoft research projects dating back like 10 years, where they were trying to figure out what you could do in the browser to isolate potential malware malware and other kinds of attacks. And I feel like this is kind of finally becoming a product now that they've kind of researched all that. Remember things like Gazelle? There were all these weird code names coming out of Microsoft Research where they were doing the work in that space. And I feel like this thing, which is Barcelona, has to do with containers in Windows 10, is kind of the fruition of all that.
Yeah, there's also maybe maturing is the wrong way, but sort of an evolution on the thinking behind security. I think for a long time, a lot of the thinking behind security was trying to proactively figure things out, use machine learning to look at different things. And frankly, we're almost at the point now where if you want to control the scope of damage. And so you sort of almost accept that on a client system in some way, something is going to happen. And if you can relegate that and have it to stay in that one place, you're impacting the security of everybody in a very positive way. And that's a very important thing to do. Yeah. And I think that this Edge work and some of the other things we see in Windows 10 and Office 365 and across the stack is kind of aimed at that. It's just, look, these things are going to happen. Let's just isolate it to the place where it happens and prevent it from spreading.
I like that idea that this is going to spread to other applications, other programs in the Windows ecosystem, maybe even third-party. Because, I mean, ultimately, isn't this where we go? I mean, if Windows 10 becomes really secure, shouldn't it essentially become a hypervisor and everything just runs in micro VMs?
Right. It's almost the Universal Windows app, Universal Windows Platform app model. Contain everything, virtualize everything, and just keep everything separate from each other.
Right.
Yeah. Applied to security.
Yep.
But what happens? What needs to happen between now and then? So what's holding us up from running everything in VM? I mean, this has actually been in the news for Windows for quite a while. That Windows 10 was going to support this, and it seems like only the enterprise nerds are really excited about it.
Well, but that's where it hits first,
It is,
right?
right. So where hypervisors already are in Windows 10 and containers is the enterprise version, right? So it's going to be there first, I would guess.
And you think about, it's a step to, isolation technologies, whatever form they take, containers of whatever kind, AppV or MedV back in the day. These are the type of technologies, I'm getting attacked.
Yikes.
That, debut in the enterprise. Of course they do.
Keep them over there.
I'm literally collecting flies.
You are.
Welcome to Hotlanta.
Yeah.
I had barbecue for lunch.
Let me try to get them.
Yeah, would you hit me, please?
Ready? Okay, ready? Sorry, I kind of got him.
She wasn't even aiming for the fly.
Sorry. Sorry.
That really hurt.
Sorry.
All right, we have to talk a little bit about Azure, about cloud, because, of course, naturally, that's been a big focus. Something I heard in the keynote that surprised me was that, Microsoft really likes this idea of pushing forward Azure as not just a service platform. It's not just something you drop something else on top of, which seems to be a little counter to the trend that we're seeing in the industry. More and more vendors are coming out, like VMware, saying, we want you to not care about what cloud service you're on. In fact, we want you to use multiple cloud services without being able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
So why is Microsoft going in that direction?
Are you talking more hybrid now, like kind of how they're redefining hybrid or defining it?
Precisely, yeah. The new definition of hybrid is not just cloud and premise, it's premise, cloud, cloud, cloud. You should be able to use multiple cloud vendors without even knowing the difference.
Right. And also, Scott Gu made this point repeatedly. Some other vendors who talk about hybrid, what that means to them is being able to plug your on-prem to your cloud. And that's all it means. And he kept emphasizing during the keynote, we also mean common APIs, the Common Resource Manager. We're talking about all different levels of the stack, even up to things like the database. Like, we want to make it a common environment so that if you're on-prem, the cloud isn't so foreign and it's easier to connect to. Sure. But it's not just a pure networking thing, like plug your on-prem into the cloud. And this is where Azure Stack plays in, which is Microsoft's coming hybrid system, where it's going to be kind of a custom version of Azure on-premises hardware that partners and customers can run in their own data centers. Right. So even that is just a piece of Microsoft's hybrid strategy. I feel like Microsoft has a much more complete strategy there.
Yeah, that's exactly
than
right.
Other vendors.
I was literally just thinking, the word is kind of comprehensive, right?
Yeah.
And aside from the obvious stuff, Microsoft is the only vendor that can bring on-prem systems into this world in stages, and you can do these hybrid deployments. Yeah. And I'm sure in the early days we thought it will be all cloud at some point, but realistically, it will probably be mostly cloud, and there'll always be some combination of private, public cloud, and then just on-prem going forward, whatever. It's interesting. Microsoft is, they approach things in very interesting ways, right? You think about stuff like the Ireland email issue, and you want to have data that's in different countries for different reasons. A country like Germany, where you have rules or laws, the data from that country has to be stored in that country. And so they address those issues. And it's kind of obvious how that happens. Yeah. But then the next step is, well, what about multinational companies? What about companies that have offices and branches everywhere in the world? I mean, how do you determine where the data from the various parts of that company is stored? And that's the next step in that evolution as well.
Yeah. And, there are rumors that Google tomorrow, Thursday, is going to announce something along the lines of what they mean by hybrid or even private cloud. So I
try not to laugh.
I'm trying not to.
Because
yeah. So I think it's very interesting that Microsoft made this a big theme, because they know something is coming tomorrow. And I don't know what it is, but there have been a lot of rumors about this.
It almost doesn't matter what it is. Google had an internet in a box kind of solution at one point, which I don't think they offer anymore, but maybe they do. Google's a great company. They have great technology. They're a great solution for a lot of people and a lot of companies as well, but they're always going to be bound by the fact that they're a cloud-first, cloud-only kind of company. That's just when they came of age. I mean, Microsoft's biggest advantage in some ways is that it grew up with the enterprises that it serves in its on-premise space, and it is making this transformation to the cloud along with them. And it can bring these companies with them and offer them both sides of the equation. So, I'm sure whatever they offer will be fantastic. I mean, but there's no way they can address this to the degree that Microsoft can.
It's funny. I see over and over analysts and people who watch this industry saying, of course Microsoft wants hybrid cloud, right? They've got all this on-premises stuff. What are they going to say otherwise? But I actually think, I actually think if Microsoft had its choice, it would love if everybody was in their cloud.
Of course, it would prefer that.
They would rather have you get off of on-prem. But I feel like because Microsoft has the enterprise chops and the enterprise customers, they understand that not everybody can bring every workload to Azure. They're realistic about that.
Most don't want to, especially right now. And that's the point. It's not, we're a hammer so everything's a nail. Right. That's where all the customers are. Yeah. So
and also,
it works to their benefit.
Compliance reasons. There are a lot of reasons that people can't move everything to the cloud. And when you hear people like Amazon saying, nobody really wants private cloud, it goes against what I hear people saying. That's
private cloud or public cloud with 2-day shipping.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think the fly is in my hair, by the way.
Is it back? You want me to hit it
Mary
again?
Jo, could you go for the fly again? Just give it a bigger whack this time.
Where is it?
That's okay.
I'll help. I'm here to help.
Mary Jo, please stop hitting me.
Well, I mean, we also had the announcement that Adobe is going to be using Azure as the quote-unquote preferred cloud provider.
So you got that.
Yeah, he did.
Good.
And
Yeah, so that's an interesting one.
We were kind of debating this, or not debating, we were discussing this earlier.
Yeah. So one of the big things at the keynote that we didn't even mention was Microsoft charted out Adobe and said, hey, by the way, Adobe is now using Azure as its preferred cloud vendor. So trying to parse this and figure out what that actually means has been interesting. I wondered if it meant any Adobe services that were in Adobe's cloud or in AWS, because a lot of their services are on AWS, are now moving to Azure. The press release that Microsoft put out did not say that. So I don't feel like I can say that.
Well, a lot of people took it that way.
I know. Right.
I think the reality is that Adobe, like Microsoft, serves companies that have different needs. And so some of them, for some reason, may want to go to AWS.
Yeah.
And that will be their option. It will still be their option going forward. Microsoft is the preferred vendor.
For some.
But it doesn't mean they're going to be the vendor.
I know. It wasn't clear because they talked about the Creative Cloud, the Document Cloud, the Marketing Cloud, all coming to Azure, right? But, you know, if I were Microsoft and I actually got Adobe to only host on my cloud, my headline would have been a little different on that press release.
Sure.
Would have been like, we just kicked AWS's butt and everything is on Azure now. It doesn't say that at all. So, yeah.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah. So we don't really know what this means, although it seems like good news. I mean, at least Adobe is opening itself to working with Microsoft, not just on this, but also in tying to the back-end Dynamics 365 system that's coming. There's a lot of different parts to the agreement. So I think it's a good agreement. I just wish I knew more what it really meant.
The press release was 127 words. It's kind of hard to tell what's going on. But
yeah.
Right. Well, let's keep going down the list of that press release, because another one of the items was that, Azure is now available in, is it twice as many regions as AWS? It's got 34 separate specific regions to operate out of. What kind of competitive advantage does it give Azure over AWS?
Well, so AWS is still the #1 cloud player by pretty much everybody's metrics. Azure is #2 by many people's metrics. I think the scope that Microsoft has is helping them. It's the more availability that you have, the more potential you have to pick up customers in different markets that AWS may not have a data center in.
And you also have that region centric stuff, which is important.
Right. So I think it's important. I think Microsoft's advantage in the scale of their cloud is something definitely that they should be touting. But so far they're #2, still trying harder.
Sure.
It's great to be #2 when they kind of came out of nowhere. And there are so many other vendors, I feel like, that are like, oh yeah, well, I don't want to say Oracle, but I will. Oracle. Hey, we're gonna kill AWS in infrastructure as a service, and Oracle's really not even there. So I think at least Microsoft has the credibility of being there and having offerings both in IaaS and PaaS at this point, and also applications running on Azure.
And we expect Google to play in this market as well.
Yeah.
And I think those are the three big players.
Pretty much. Right.
And iCloud, obviously. So.
Obviously.
Well, I mean, last week, Larry Ellison got up at Oracle World and basically just made fun of AWS.
I know. Yep.
But he's the clown prince of technology.
He is, pretty much. Yeah.
So is he in spoiler mode now? Now that he's sort of stepped back, he can just come in and throw punches whenever he feels like it?
You know what? I've covered this industry so long. I remember every time Oracle would announce something, like whatever it was, in databases, in any part of the tech industry, the PR people who work there would just be like, huh, he said we have that? Really? Really? So I think it's kind of in his MO that he just says things and then they try to fill in the gaps after he says it.
Right. The only time I ever saw him in person, he was jogging through a Las Vegas casino with 20 bodyguards all in black suits, and it was the craziest.
Were they all women?
No, that would have been excellent. It would have been like a James Bond movie. But it was just some crazy Muhammad Ali moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did say that Amazon was literally 20 years behind. I don't even know where that puts us in the technology world.
Yeah, no kidding.
Is Amazon even 20 years old?
No, probably.
So basically, Amazon's not yet born.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks, Larry.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, continuing on with this. Let's talk a little bit about Microsoft turning Azure into a supercomputer? Because this is where some people think that this is going. You have a massive amount of computing resources that you can call dynamically. The natural usage of this is not just to serve out web services, but to combine those resources and turn it into an on-demand supercomputer. Are you seeing any of that down on the floor?
No, that's up in the air.
So this is all about Microsoft's strategy in the Field-Programmable Gate Array market. And Microsoft has been doing a lot of work behind the scenes in this market. You don't think of them as a chip player, right? But they've been doing work for years in Microsoft Research in something, this is a codename show, Project Catapult.
Right.
And they at first started using this Field-Programmable Gate Array. Let me just call them FPGA, much easier to say. FPGAs in servicing their Bing systems. Then they decided, hey, you know what? This is working really well on Bing. What if we could take these programmable circuits, basically, put them on a circuit board, plug them into every Azure system that we have in our data centers, and be able to program them on the fly?
Sure.
So this is what they're talking about, which is crazy, but actually they're already doing it.
Yeah, it's just, it's amazing. The impact it has on computation is amazing. It's almost an exponential improvement. And they had some great demos during the Satya Nadella keynote on Monday evening, showing how much faster these things perform when you can add this hardware to those servers. I guess.
Yep. Yeah. So it's kind of like they've been doing this a little bit in stealth mode. There have been little bits and pieces that have leaked out about what they've been doing in this space, but they are now saying we have figured this out to the point where we can use it in our own Azure data centers. We think this is going to give us a competitive advantage in terms of speed and how we handle different tasks, program on the fly.
Right. What were the applications for gaming?
Well, NVIDIA. NVIDIA was one of the first to in this latest generation of FPGA supercomputers. I mean, they showed off their grid. Is this essentially Microsoft Grid?
Skynet.
Skynet, yeah.
T100.
But how does this fit in the portfolio? Do you contract separately if you have an application that can benefit from FPGA, or does it just automatically decide when you need the power of a pre-programmable gate?
Yeah, they explained it a little bit in some of the blog posts. They talked about how their network fabric is now taking advantage of this inherently, I believe.
Right.
But they also have different sizes and types of VMs in Azure that I think some of these are more attuned to working with that technology than others.
I saw, Microsoft, one of the benefits of the cloud, of course, is this on-demand access to bandwidth, to processing, computation, whatever. And I would imagine this could fall into that category, right, where you need to get things done very quickly, and you could pay extra to make that happen.
Yeah, I would think so. We don't really know that yet. They haven't talked about pricing and licensing and how that this will affect, or maybe it won't, and maybe it'll just be part of the service.
Benefit of the stack,
yeah.
Now, of course, my favorite has got to be HoloLens. I understand that you didn't get your hands on any new HoloLenses. Let's get that out of the way, did you?
No.
No. Okay.
No, but if you want one, you can buy it at the Microsoft Store now. It's available to anybody.
And with that new purchase, I will be able to remodel my kitchen. Did you see that demo?
Well, you will be able to play the Avoid the Lava game. Actually, if you want to remodel your kitchen,
I don't know
if it's available at Lowe's yet, but there are. Well, maybe it is.
Yeah, I think Lowe's actually is the one who's taking HoloLens, putting them in select stores.
That's Seattle area only, isn't it? Or
is that I don't remember now. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was a cool demo, though.
Yeah.
Like you put the HoloLens on, you're remodeling your kitchen, you can kind of reconfigure it and see what it would look like in real time.
Sure.
I could see doing that.
You might have to do it soon.
Yes. But the part is, I think I like seeing these kind of demos with HoloLens, the more practical, real-world ones, than the gaming ones, because I feel like this is where Microsoft's going to make the money on the HoloLens, right?
Sure.
I know elevator demos and such aren't like the most exciting thing, like Minecraft, but where is Microsoft going to make money on HoloLens?
In other words, the immediate success possibilities for HoloLens are more vertical than they are consumer.
Yeah.
I've seen applications for HoloLens where a mechanic will get an interface that will show him an exploded view of the engine or the transmission. That's kind of interesting, but then I got to ask about the wisdom of going with a dedicated hardware platform where essentially we saw the same thing at Google I/O and at Lenovo's Tango announcement, where you can have all of that same power in the phone you already own that you bought for less than a HoloLens. Is there a future for dedicated hardware in the AR space?
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, definitely. So there are some indications. Microsoft hasn't actually announced it, but there are indications that Microsoft is going to be pushing all HoloLens towards sort of a PC model like you see with VR solutions like Oculus Rift or wherever, where you can connect this thing, tether it to a PC, and take advantage of the extra processing power of that device. And so I think, yeah, that is the future, because when you're doing something like you just described, you're exploding an engine view, you're an engineer, whatever, that's not something you're going to run on Google Cardboard. It's something you're going to need an expensive and complex and sophisticated vertical solution for. And I think that's where HoloLens makes a lot of sense.
Right. Think of HoloLens like Surface in a way, right? It's going to be Microsoft's high-end kind of, here's the perfect thing if you could design the perfect thing, and it's going to be expensive. And then they're counting...
like an iPhone.
Right, like an iPhone. But then they're going to count on other partners of all different sizes, types, to make different kinds of hardware running the Windows holographic platform.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we never see Microsoft actually create a HoloLens for consumers. Right. But I think somebody else will, like other companies will create that.
Yeah.
Right?
I almost see it as a kind of a bump up in capabilities. You know, you have a basic VR solution of whatever kind, Oculus Rift, and that you could do augmented reality or mixed reality on top of that, and it's almost like a more expensive version or more capable version that offers additional functionality.
And again, you see that in verticals, or do you see that actually making it into the consumer space as more than just a gaming device?
I do see it in the consumer space eventually, but like you said, it's the price points are kind of tough for consumers right now, but the price points on VR are kind of tough for consumers right now. So I think as VR comes down, augmented reality / mixed reality can kind of slide in on the top as more of the high-end solution, and it's probably only makes sense at price points like we see today for Oculus Rift or whatever Hive, whatever the VR solutions are. So I think eventually.
Yeah.
Our chat room actually, I love it. They're taking the longer view. There's many of them like BattleCam and PC Geek who are all saying the same thing. Essentially, that Microsoft's not going to make any money off of Revision 1. They're going to lose money. They might even lose money on Revision 2, but you got to look at this 10 years down the line. Microsoft is in it. They're perfecting their hardware. They're perfecting the interface. And, just like Paul said, eventually, when they get the hardware looking sleeker and when they get the UI a bit more intuitive, this becomes Microsoft's new profit center. This is their new cash cow.
Yeah, and I actually think tethering it to some amazing amount of computing power makes a lot of sense at that point as well, rather than have it be a standalone kind of device.
We're going to learn more about this, Padre, in December, because Microsoft has a WhenHeck event there where they're inviting all their partners to come, and they're going to show them the whole playbook, supposedly, and tell them how they want them to build on the holographic platform. So I bet we're going to hear more once that happens.
Where's that?
It's in China.
Oh, convenient.
We could go.
That's the only place
Windows
on Earth
Weekly
that's bigger than this convention center.
Yeah, pretty much.
China.
I'll hold your bags.
Okay.
I love China. Let's go.
Let me tell you, if you're in the B hall and you go to A, but you meant to go to C, that's a 45-minute mistake.
Yeah, it really is.
It really is. It's crazy.
This place is gigantic.
And the moment you realize that you're looking up and you see the letter A,
you're in the wrong
not a happy
place.
It's not a happy space.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yep.
This is the fly.
You get him. Oh no.
So what you're saying is the next time we send you to Ignite, we should give you segues.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Aren't there people in here with segues?
Well, there should be. I'd pay big bucks to latch onto a Segway.
Well, Paul, Mary Jo, I do want to jump into OneDrive and SharePoint, so hopefully there's been a lot of news about those platforms. But before we do that, we're going to have to take a moment to thank a sponsor of Windows Weekly. Mary Jo, you took Paul out last night, right?
Got it. Sorry.
Nope.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. To answer the question, yes.
Yes.
Well, I was just wondering, was there more than beer? I mean, you must have taken him for some good eats. So you are a foodie of the first degree.
I am. We did have some good eats. We had some nice Mexican food last night. We did. Yeah. We had a little tequila on top of the beer as well.
A little. Yeah.
Naturally.
Well, you had more than me.
A bit.
Well, you know, it's this sort of event that makes me really treasure the fact that I'm actually starting to eat better. I was inspired by Leo. You see, he's been eating salad here and this weird stuff that's contained in a jar. So over the last couple of weeks, the Twit family has actually made improvements in our eating lifestyle. We even got ourselves an air fryer. Don't tell Leo or Lisa about that because we're not supposed to have that.
What's an air fryer? Like a microwave? What are you talking about?
Think about it like an oven. But it doesn't use any grease. It actually lets all that nasty stuff drip down to the bottom of a tray, and it
gives you
Is there
another item where you can make food that comes out the bottom that I would want to eat? Because
no.
You've just described the food.
No. But believe it or not, you can cook healthy, Paul, and still enjoy it.
I don't believe it.
He doesn't.
Well, I'm going to give you something to believe in. It's Blue Apron. Now, Blue Apron is the company that's come to Twit, and they said, look, we understand that your audience is busy. We understand that they're geeks, they're engineers, they're people who are caught up in the sciences, but sometimes they don't take the time to make sure that they're putting the right fuel into their bodies, which is why Blue Apron is a sponsor of Windows Weekly. Now, Blue Apron's mission is to make incredible home cooking affordable to everyone, accessible, while supporting a more sustainable food system, setting the highest standards for ingredients, and building a community of home chefs. They deliver seasonal recipes along with fresh, high-quality ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. What that means is that you're always going to see new ingredients, new boxes, new options, so you don't get tired of the same food over and over again. Every meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe card and pre-portioned ingredients that can be prepared in 40 minutes or less. You get to save time and money because shopping at the grocery store is 60% more expensive than Blue Apron. If you spend a lot of time eating out or at high-end grocery stores, and who among us doesn't, you can now spend under $10 per person for a healthy home-cooked meal. You can customize your recipes every week based on your dietary preferences, and you choose a delivery option that fits your needs. There's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. And of course, Blue Apron delivers to 99% of the continental United States. They set the highest quality standards for their community of over 150 local farms, fisheries, and ranchers across the United States. Seafood is sourced sustainably. Beef is raised humanely. Chickens are free-range. Pork is raised naturally. And regenerative farming practices are used for all of their products. And by shipping the exact amount required for the recipe, Blue Apron is also reducing food waste. Now, whether it's Japanese ramen noodles, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, or heirloom tomatoes, Blue Apron brings you the best. And not only do they support a more sustainable food system, but they support happy and healthy families. Cooking together builds strong family bonds, and research has shown that Blue Apron families cook nearly 3 times as often. I mean, if it's this easy, if it's that fast, if it's that delicious, why wouldn't you? New recipes are created every week by Blue Apron's culinary team and are not repeated within the year. They'll include things like paprika spiced shrimp and cheddar grits with tomato and sweet corn, eggplant and chickpea tangine with islander pepper, tomato, and couscous, summer udon noodle salad with cherry tomatoes, corn, and summer sweet pepper, spicy hoisin chicken stir fry with baby bok choy and cucumber salad. I'm just getting hungry talking about these things. Well, folks, if you're tired of eating poorly, if you're tired of eating fast food, if you're tired of really expensive high-end supermarket food, then you need to try out Blue Apron. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. You'll love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So don't wait. Again, blueapron.com/twit. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. And we thank Blue Apron for their support of Windows Weekly. Mary Jo, I know that you love yourself some SharePoint.
You can't hear me, can you?
He can.
Hello.
I could have eaten an entire Arby's beef and cheddar while you did that promo.
Well, I mean, that's what you were supposed to do. That's why I thought you were going to do that. Wasn't that the agreement?
Is that in Blue Apron? Beef and cheddar?
I think
not.
That's not. That was in the old menu. That's gone now. Yeah.
No. Okay. Sorry.
Now, that's quite an audience there. Who's the furthest?
Who's from the furthest away? You
Well,
mean?
is it the
Or
person
who's
in the
sitting the
Sweden
furthest
jacket?
away?
We've lost some of the furthest away people.
Yeah.
Understandably.
Right.
They were culled from the herd.
Well, you
think
are
they
in a
were-
corridor. Maybe they were just carried away.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah. That was us.
Well, so who's the man in the blue and green with the Sweden on his back?
This guy right here,
Is
Michael.
Is he actually from Sweden?
He is.
So wait, are there people walking around with like United States jackets and Japan
Oh, when you
jackets?
said furthest away, did you mean geographically?
Geographically, who comes the furthest away?
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I'm not sure if I
Yeah.
highlighted that yet.
Well, that would
Yeah.
be Mary Jo's fault.
I take the blame.
All the beer.
Is anyone from further away than Sweden? Yes.
Yep.
Where are you from? Australia.
Australia.
Oh, okay. Why does
Well, you know,
Australia
Australia's a lot
always
closer
win?
than it used to be. Are you sure that's further?
And Microsoft Ignite draws attendees from all over the world, right? I mean, it's
Right.
they always
Oh, yeah.
list how many countries they've come from. Did they list it this year?
They
Oh, I
didn't
didn't
this
hear
year,
that,
I don't
yeah.
think. No.
I will say, you know, it's funny. We were sort of debating the point of a show this big, right? Ignite is humongous.
It is.
and it's physically humongous, but it's overwhelming in many ways. There's so many sessions. With a show this size, you always run into issues where people show up for a session and they can't get in, and
Yeah.
they had such a long walk to get there, and the next one is 2 halls over, and
Yeah.
you know, why do we go through this? And you could make arguments for online learning and different kinds of things, but I think it really does have to do with the diverse geographical nature of what's happening here, and
Yeah.
that a lot of times this is just about getting in front of people
Right.
who might work for a company that you might partner with or do work with or whatever. And I think that's kind of the big
Yeah.
point. It's the
It is.
stuff
Yeah.
behind us here in
Yeah.
many ways, right?
But I have an idea for the show next year.
Okay.
I do. I think they should put the groups closer together who are
Oh.
in the same thing, like all the SharePoint and Office 365. Like,
Oh, and then they could have separate shows for each of those things.
wait, didn't they do that before?
Right.
No, I just feel like sometimes the sessions are just like so
Yeah.
far apart.
No, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Plus, being a New Yorker, I have to tell you, I've been taking the bus around here to get back and forth the hotel to the show.
Yeah.
The other day I was on the bus and the driver was trying to be polite and like wait. And at one point I just turned to my seatmate and I'm like, when is he going to get going? And he said, are you from New York? I'm like, I am.
For someone who doesn't drive, Mary Jo has a lot of road
I do,
rage. It's
I do.
interesting. Yeah,
It was bad.
it's tough when you're from north.
It is.
I guess
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool to get to see so many different people. And for us to see.
Actually, I mean, for what it's
people-
worth, too, we should say Atlanta is beautiful.
Atlanta's a cool town.
This is an
Yeah.
awesome destination. I
It
love
is.
coming here.
Yeah.
I love Atlanta aside from summer. The weather is
Oh, yeah.
brutal. It's hot
It's
and
hot.
humid.
It was 142 degrees out yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
In the shade.
In the direct sun, yeah.
No, I hear that a lot from the press. We get a little bit jaded with these events, and I've heard, you know, CES is too big, Google I/O is too big, the various Microsoft events from Ignite to Build are too big, and you can get all the information by sitting at home. But I think you're right. There's something about actually being in the event area with other people who maybe you only see once a year.
There's going to be some casual relationship you make that could turn into something important for your business or whatever. And I think I think it really is that stuff. Because, you know, they could advertise this stuff, I guess, on some online learning thing, but you're not going to see it.
Right. And you know, the fact that you can go from a session to actually getting your hands on a demo
and
on the
plus,
show
right,
floor.
and talk to the Microsoft folks that are directly responsible for certain products or services, or even had a hand in making them.
I know.
It's huge.
That is cool. Like all the big people were wandering around yesterday, you know, Rusinovich, Snover, all the who's who, you know, and it's kind of like, hey, there's Mark Rusinovich.
Snover was parking cars at our hotel the other day. That was nice. It's a weird.
It's his extra job. He
Yeah,
needs that.
it's a strange show.
Yeah.
As the Geek 007 says, 007, it's meat space networking.
Yes. It's just like a social network, except it's like real. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a lot more beer,
Right.
we hope.
Yeah.
All right, Mary Jo,
Yes.
I know that you can't stand SharePoint, so let's talk about it.
Right? Let's.
Nice.
Actually, let's talk about your story first from Thurrott.com, which
What's
is
my story?
related to the OneDrive thing, the placeholders.
Oh, that's actually Brad's story, but
Yeah. But you could address it perhaps.
I'll leech off of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, there were a bunch of SharePoint and OneDrive for Business type announcements this week at the show. If you go up to the Office blogs, you'll see 3,500 word posts. It's a lot of information. It's interesting, one of the things they didn't address is that they're working to bring back placeholders, finally. And I've been told explicitly on several occasions this was never going to happen. You may recall, I think it was Windows 8 or 8.1 where they added it. the ability to see everything that you have in a OneDrive repository, whether it's consumer or business, on your PC, access those files while you're online, and then have them download as needed. And then, of course, you can selectively mark things that you want to be offline. The problem with placeholders, well, there were a lot of problems, but one of the problems was that on low memory or low storage devices, even the placeholders, as small as they were, could take up all of the storage on your device. And so for that and some other reasons, they had to get rid of it. It's not available in Windows 10. And so if you look at all of the OneDrive clients we have today across PCs and Macs and mobile devices, they have a sort of selective sync kind of functionality where you can just determine which parts of it that you want available offline. And if you are offline, you don't see the other stuff. But they're bringing back placeholders, essentially. We don't know the name of it. They literally don't have a name yet for it. In a session, Jeff Tepper, sorry, did a demo of this. And I believe he used a SharePoint or maybe a OneDrive for Business repository, but it's going to work the same across all three types of storage because it's the same engine for all three. And so I think for Windows, this is an RS2 feature. They're not saying that, but the timing they're saying hints strongly that that's where it's going to come.
Yeah, there was a hint in user voice for OneDrive, I think, that said, yeah, we're going to say more about that at build next year.
Right.
So if that is the timing, then that would probably be a Redstone 2, or at least in preview by that time, and then Redstone 3 maybe. Yeah.
And then I guess just to drag SharePoint into it, I think the part of the announcement they did make this week was that they're allowing people to sync their SharePoint document libraries to, is it PC Mac, mobile? I don't remember.
I think it's PC and Mac. So SharePoint Online document libraries sync with OneDrive folders. The preview of that is out this week. So that's been something that has been missing from OneDrive, and a lot of people have been saying, when is it? When is it? Right. The last roadmap we saw said Q4 of this year, but now it looks like the preview will be out. Well, it's out now. And then the actual rollout to every Office customer probably next year, like Q1 next year. So it's slipping a little bit, but at least the preview is out there. And if you need instructions how to engage in the preview, I put the link to that on my blog post about this, because it's fairly involved how you get the preview. Yeah, but they did show that there was a lot of SharePoint content. I also have, for people who are into SharePoint and OneDrive and futures, I put a couple roadmap slides up on my site that were pulled from different sessions. And so it shows you what's here now, what's coming in Q4, and then what's going to be out in the first half of next year. So they have a roadmap, and they're feeling confident enough to put actual features on the roadmap, which is a good thing. So yeah, I'm not going to go through them all now because they're all very detailed and specific to different platforms, but just know there is a roadmap, and they seem to be executing on the roadmap.
Right.
Good. So that's good.
Paul, I want to back into OneDrive just a bit because I'm actually very excited about the placeholders. This is one of the issues that I've had. I've got I've got 87 gigabytes worth of stuff in my OneDrive right now, and I had to go into the settings and say, okay, I don't want to sync a few of those things, but then I sometimes forget what I have because there's no mention of it. I actually have to drop into the web interface. Are you saying that I'll now be able to see all of the files that I've chosen not to sync as grayed out boxes, and will I have access to what I do and do not sync in the OneDrive interface rather than having to go through the settings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. Yep. Okay. Well, that makes it far more useful.
It's kind of, anyone who experienced this placeholder thing and used it sort of understands how awesome it was. Although I guess, sometimes you can get burned by it.
I did.
And people do, that's happened to a lot of people, I'm sure. In other words, because you see it in the file system, you sort of assume you have it. And then maybe you get on a plane or some other offline situation and it's not actually there.
Right. But it looked like they were going to use colors maybe to designate. So if you see like a green file, you're like, oh, that is on my PC. Right. If you see a different color, it's like, you don't have that on your PC, and if you want it, download it. That would be good.
I literally rearranged the way that I store things in OneDrive to accommodate this because I don't like selective sync, and I don't, in the sense that I don't want to, dive into individual folders and pick the little things that I want. I kind of pulled everything I was going to need offline out into a different space so I could just kind of mark one thing for offline. But it's a lot of manual management because, of course, what's in there changes, and you have to kind of drag stuff back and forth. And this is, it's a big deal. I mean, anyone who did use this and relied on it understands it's great that this is finally going to come back.
Yep.
Yeah, one of those features that was removed that everyone was sort of puzzled and scratching their head as to why they would take it away. Mary Jo, I'm looking at the roadmap that you posted, and one of the things, which it made me chuckle, but then I realized maybe it's important. They're going to add @mentions in Office doc comments. So does that give like a Twitter notification to somebody saying, hey, someone just mentioned you in this doc, you have to come in and check out what they did?
It's kind of designed to work, to trigger that idea. And this, I think, is already in some versions of Outlook.
Yes.
So if you @ somebody, it's meant to bring their attention to it and actually have them address something.
Right.
To pay attention to it, right? So, we're used to this from Twitter. If somebody @ you, you're like, oh, what are they saying? Same thing in comments, when you're doing a big shared document, you want to get somebody to look at that specific thing like, hey, @Thurrott, what do you mean by this?
So the funny thing about @mentions in Outlook, if you have it in one of your clients, I know it's in Android and iOS.
Yeah.
In Outlook.
And the web version, maybe?
It could be. You don't actually need any kind of a back end for this to work. I mean, if you just have the client, it actually does work. And so if I was in an email thread with Mary Jo and 12 other people, as soon as I attach an @ to her email address, she'll always be highlighted in that way. And the reason it's important is, if you think about these meandering email threads that go on that we all hate, email 8 of 17 might be addressed to you, and it's something you really do need to look at. And if you use this feature, it's a way for that thing to really stand out in the client. You see it and you can address it. And it's not something I can use personally because my organization is small and we don't all have the same email client, even back end where I work. So I'm not really in a big enterprise, but I could see this being really, really useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the enterprise bits that is in the roadmap, actually Q4 2016, so either we have it now or we should have it very soon, is the policy to block downloads to non-compliant devices. So I can actually list what devices are allowed to access my network resources, and I forbid anyone to say download it to an Android device that's not the latest version of Android. Do we have that? I mean, can I actually play with that right now?
I think that's still coming because they have features rolling out now, then features coming in Q4. So technically Q4 is October.
Right.
Maybe next week. I don't know when they're going to have that.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
What about moving files from OneDrive to SharePoint? It was pointed out in the chat room that Yammer is moving from Azure over to SharePoint. I don't understand this.
Wait, what? What does that mean?
Oh, they're moving it off. They're moving to SharePoint off of straight Azure. Yeah, Yammer.
Moving to SharePoint. I don't understand that either.
I know.
I don't understand a lot of things about Yammer, to be honest.
Let's start with that. What about Yammer?
We're all sort of wishing Yammer would just go away, frankly.
No, I know a lot of people use Yammer and people find value in Yammer, but right now Microsoft has so many social/collaborative things, it's hard to figure out what to use what with. And there's about to become another member of the family that's going to complicate this more, which is Skype Teams, right? This is Microsoft's competitor to Slack. So you're going to have Yammer, Skype Teams, what else? LinkedIn.
Well, LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is.
But yet that also has a social
public cloud
feed
version.
Right. LinkedIn is more for people outside, where SharePoint groups, Yammer, and Skype. Well, Skype Teams could be both.
Well, SharePoint has had straight up social networking features for a few versions as well. I mean,
So there's going to have to be some clarification about what Microsoft thinks you would use for what, I would say. And
it's funny because SharePoint has never really been kind of a mess before, so this is weird for us.
Adding more complexity. But they are doing some things to simplify SharePoint. The other thing that they announced this week that people were kind of excited about, I thought, was the SharePoint apps coming out for Android and for Windows. So right now you already have SharePoint on iOS devices, and you can actually look at your SharePoint from your phone, which is kind of a cool thing to be able to do. So they're simplifying that user interface. They're adding a news feed. They're doing a lot of things that are meant to try to make SharePoint a little easier to use, which is very welcome. But yeah, Skype Teams, by the way, they didn't talk at this show about that at all.
Refused.
Yes. In fact, when I asked...
What was Frank's quote? Frank had something really funny.
We don't talk about things we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know Skype Teams is real, but we think there's going to be a beta of it in November, but there was no talk about that at the show here at all, if you were wondering. Unless there were sneak peeks of that somewhere, but yeah.
And of course, the big announcement is that in the first half of 2017, they're going to remove the pound sign and the percent sign from blocked characters.
Woo!
That does it for me. I'm sold. Let's go.
You're out. You're out of here. Yeah.
All right. What about Office 365? Because it wasn't all Azure. It wasn't all OneDrive and SharePoint. They had quite a few announcements for the suite.
Yep.
I talked to Kirk Kondisbauer, is that how we say his name? Mm-hmm. A super nice guy. He runs the Office 365 stuff. And I said, do I have to get on my knees and beg you guys to slow down? Because seriously, every month they release a list of what they've updated through Office 365, but also, in Office. And it spans all of the clients, from the web to the rich clients on Windows and Mac to the mobile clients on Windows and Android and iOS. And it's way more complicated than that because there's insider programs with various rings. If you're an Office 365 commercial, they have the ability to get new features first. You have the ability to defer features. It's really complicated understanding where these things hit and when and how, and then there are so many of them. And he asked me, did you see my blog post today? I said, no. And he goes, we just released the biggest list we've ever had of updates for Office 365, literally today. Yep. And they did. And it's kind of amazing. And it's more amazing in some ways because even since then, they've released other features.
They have.
They've been I don't know. So, Microsoft used to talk rapid release. We're moving to this new program. And we thought, yeah, sure, whatever. And this thing is like a tsunami of functionality. It's crazy. Yep. And it's really hard to keep track of. So that you could make a career out of just figuring out what it is Office 365 is doing and where. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the one that I heard of all those many features they announced, the one people kept talking about was TAP.
Yeah.
TAP for Word and Outlook 2016. So what that lets you do is take content you have and insert it, right?
Content you have like in-house.
In-house already.
Yeah,
and you can
as
just
opposed
put
to public sources.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of handy. If you're doing documents to be shared in-house, it really simplifies that process. So that's, I think, rolling out to first release, one of those rings.
First release, yeah, for Office 365 commercial.
Right, right.
Did you get a chance to see the My Analytics thing?
Yeah, I know about that.
So to me, that was the most amazing thing. And
I think this is super scary. I don't like this.
I'm with Mary Jo. I don't think I want to know how many hours I work after hours.
Exactly. In other words, that's exactly the reaction. It's not creepy like Google creepy, but it's you know what I mean? Like, but it's clearly designed to be helpful, but you could sort of see it being abused.
Although the good part, which Julia White made sure to mention, is this thing, it's called My Analytics. It used to be called Delve Analytics.
Right.
It lets you keep track of like how many hours you spend in meetings, whether you've talked to the right people during the week or haven't, who you should ping and stay in touch with. I was worried that your employer might see this. They do not. Well, they say they do not.
Here's the thing. So it's a little more creepy than you suggested. Okay. So in the sense that it even looks at what you were doing during meetings. So it knows when your meetings are scheduled, and if it sees that you're answering emails, it knows that you're not paying attention to the meeting. And so you basically, you will get reports that say, this person you work with is wasting a lot of your time. That kind of stuff. There's some strangeness to it.
I don't think your boss gets that report.
No, but you
get it about yourself.
Yes, it is, but obviously that could change. But the thing they are going to be doing in the future is providing more of a business-wide view, and hopefully it doesn't get to that level of granularity. But us as a company, what percentage of time are we spending in meetings? Mm-hmm. What percentage of time are we spent interacting with our customers or partners?
Right.
And hopefully you can find broader bits of lack of productivity or whatever.
Right. That's the idea. It's supposed to help you improve your own personal productivity. Like see how much you're working after hours when you should.
It's like a meditation calendar in a way, but it's a little it's a little weird.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I know people, and then there are people who love it. Like Satya Nadella talks about using it himself.
Sure.
To see like what he's doing right and
wrong. If you read a lot of self-help books, you probably get a kick out of this thing. But
I don't know. I don't want to know how I'm wasting my time.
It's a level of introspection that, I think a lot of us would be uncomfortable with. Yeah.
There should be one more cacategory in the screen for Xbox. If you just maybe right.
By the way, I literally said that to
You did.
I did. I said, if there was a Call of Duty box,
you'd have to shut that off.
Yeah, you would see. Yeah, it would. Yeah, that'd be ugly.
But see, here's okay. I'm with Paul. I actually think that this is important tech. I like that they're developing this, but I'm also with Mary Jo in that it's not the tech that offends me. It's what I know I'm going to see, and I'm not going to like what I see. Like for example, most of us don't think we spend 18.5 hours a week in meetings.
Right.
But I'm betting there's way more of us who spend closer to this number than not. We don't like to think that we're spending almost 12 hours on email.
This is like, how many hours do you think you spend sitting in front of the TV?
Right.
And you're like, like in maybe an hour or two a night. Okay. So actually you spend 18 hours a day. And, like it's just sort of like, you kind of know what it's going to say. It's a little,
It's like that scale in my bathroom that lies to me.
Exactly.
Yes.
No, but it's with all the metrics that Microsoft is gathering from across their ecosystem, including something like the Microsoft Band, I could see them easily adding in a couple more boxes that could tell you, okay, well, this is how many hours you spend walking, running, sitting, and then you correlate that with the other data that they're collecting. This becomes an incredibly powerful tool. Also, a la Mary Jo, an incredibly scary tool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the worst case, the thing that kind of goes through the back of your head is, oh, my boss is going to know I spent X hours drinking craft beer instead of doing email. My mind just goes there.
Your boss would know that if it was just was on Facebook or,
on
or
Untapped.
Instagram, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I think there is some really cool potential intersection with Microsoft Health, that platform, and this, because, there's a big emphasis right now on workplace health. And if you wanted to know, should the person be moving more?
That was always the promise of Microsoft
it
Health,
was.
that it wasn't just health, right? That it was, we also have insight into your work schedule. So for example, I will never forget this promise. It hasn't really been realized, but this notion that it seems like your heart starts to race every Monday morning at 8:45 a.m. and you're really stressed and you have a meeting every Monday at 9 a.m. So maybe you should, whatever it might be, meditate, drink some water, whatever.
Quit.
But that's great job, but that's that's an intersection of just basic health stuff that you might get from like a Fitbit or whatever, and
that'd be cool.
Just information about your calendar and work schedule.
Yeah.
Now, Mary Jo, if they were able to track how many pints of every type of beer you've had, would this become a little less scary, a little more friendly, maybe?
Maybe more scary. I don't know.
This is the tool that will tell you that your 12:30 timeline is incorrect.
Yes.
From last night, for example.
Right.
I saw a demo at the Intel Developer Forum that was using, they didn't have any hardware, but they were just analyzing bits of data from fitness bands, a smart sleep monitor that was built into a mattress, and a couple of other things like food tracking from MyFitnessPal. That's fine. But what got scary is when they started showing things like liver function. Like this is the percent efficiency your liver is working at when you consider how much you've had to drink and how much sleep you've had.
Yeah.
And I think it's those bits of measurement that you don't expect to see that makes it a little creepy.
Yeah. Agree.
Agreed.
Well, I don't work in a big enterprise, so I hope never to see this tool in action.
I'm thinking about moving up to the enterprise version just so I can use this, because it does look kind of cool.
Yeah.
I guess it depends if you're the kind of person who wants self-knowledge or wants denial.
And you know what? They're both good choices.
They are.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to something a little bit more fun. Paul, tell me about these things that I'm seeing on my screen right now. These are Microsoft Hello peripherals.
These things.
Okay, I thought we tried this about 20 years ago. Are we ready to try it again?
Yeah, of course we are. In fact, I'm confused this stuff didn't come out last year. When Microsoft announced that Windows Hello would be part of Windows 10, I think it was in early 2015 sometime. I expected by that holiday season we were going to see all kinds of Microsoft branded and third-party peripherals so you could add this functionality to existing computers. If you buy a new computer like a Surface Book, it has a Windows
Whoops.
Windows Hello compatible camera. One of the Surface Book Surface Pro 4 type covers comes with a fingerprint reader and so forth. We use this technology in phones and everything like that. So it never really materialized. And back in June, I started asking about this. I was confused by this. And actually, there are a few third-party solutions in the market. You can get some on Amazon for as cheap as $20, but they're made by companies that no one has really heard of, including those ones that we're highlighting today, that Microsoft is selling through the store. But they're inexpensive. Those particular ones cost about $40. And they have the old swipe style, like Lenovo and HP have had for many years. And then the newer kind of touch style, which is what we're used to from phones. But we also see on newer computers as well. And so, yeah, honestly, as far as Windows Hello goes, I prefer this style of signing into the camera-based approach because I find it to be very purposeful. In other words, even though I get in front of this computer, I might not actually want to log into it. Whereas, when I reach for the fingerprint sensor, I've done that purposefully. That's my intent to log in. So I actually think that kind of thing makes more sense.
Paul, I'm actually with you. I really enjoyed having fingerprint sensors. In fact,
by the way, if I could interrupt real quick? Yeah, I really enjoy how many times you've agreed with me today.
I could end that.
I'm on Twitter a lot, and I don't get this usually, so it's strange but comforting.
Well, someone in the chat room wanted to know if there was a sign they could use on Twitter to not at you, but to slap you like Mary Jo. So I don't know if we could build that in.
Sure, maybe we'll make a mobile app.
Yeah. A bot. We can make a bot.
But I remember CES, it's got to be 12, 13 years ago. They had URU, was a small biometric company that made a sensor that you could plug into a Windows XP and better computer. And it was the first chance I got to use a fingerprint scanner that actually worked. It really worked. Yeah. Sure. And then it went away. And I have an old Lenovo laptop that has a fingerprint sensor. I have an old Gateway laptop that has a fingerprint sensor. But they never really caught on. And even though I'm into it, I'd love to add this to my computer. It just doesn't seem to be popular with consumers.
Yeah, so the ThinkPad line is obviously aimed at business users. They've done a great job with fingerprint readers of all kinds. They've moved from swipe to press, touch type sensors on their recent models, which works wonderful like it does on an iPhone or a Nexus 6P like you have. I just, somebody from, I haven't written about this yet, somebody from Microsoft observed today that we're using this ancient method of input on our computers. It's kind of strange. We have this really modern device and we have a QWERTY keyboard. I think the fingerprint is just, or whatever Windows Hello type technology you choose to use, is just part of a natural movement toward more, can I use the word natural twice in a sentence? A more natural way of doing things. And so I prefer it to other methods of signing in, personally.
Mary Jo,
fingerprint
or camera?
I like the fingerprint on here.
Yeah.
I didn't like the iris scanning thing on
the Windows phone. Yeah.
No, because I was always going like.
Yep, it never works. Yeah. A little closer, a little further away. A little closer.
Yeah.
A little up.
But I will say Hello on the laptop for me has gotten a lot better. When I first started using it with the first version of Windows 10, it didn't recognize me most of the time.
And you mean with the camera?
With the camera.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's. But I should say, I don't actually find it to be bad on the computer.
No, but on the phone.
But I mean more for intent purposes. In other words, I might step in front of my computer in my home office. I don't necessarily mean to log into the computer. Maybe I'm picking up a pencil.
True.
But if it sees me and if I'm at the right angle, it might just log me in.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have a computer that can do that yet. We've got Alex and Kara who both use Surface Pros. And I actually do like the feature. It works. It's probably the most seamless biometric authentication I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised. I expected Microsoft to come out by now with, they have a range of keyboards and mice. They could add these sensors to some of those devices. It seems like that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I really haven't seen that happen for some reason.
All right, Paul. Let's dig into the premium content that you bring to the game. And talk a little bit about Office 365 adoption numbers. This has been a hot topic because, of course, they've been growing fantastically. At least we think they've been growing fantastically. Yep. Do you have other ideas?
No, not really. But I did sort of want to look at that because when you think about 1.2 billion Office users in the world, a lot of people, it's an audience that's almost the size of the Windows user base. Obviously, they've had some interesting success with mobile devices in recent years, with Office on mobile devices. Yeah. But the numbers that they put out for Office 365 don't seem to be that big on, at first blush, I guess. And it's funny because, like I said, I talked to the guy who runs that business, and so he sat down and he said, Well, we do have one thing to talk about today, which was this article that I wrote. And so if you sort of think about 100 million people across consumer and business, which is a rough figure, it's roughly 80% commercial and 20% consumer. Those are active users of Office 365. 400 million on Windows 10, 1.2 billion in Office, 1.5 billion in Windows overall. In that world, it seems like kind of a small number. But there are different ways to look at it, right? Because we have lots of mobile apps, for example, that have 1 billion users, but they're free. Yeah. We have mobile platforms like iOS and Android that either have 1 billion users or at least 1 billion devices sold, whatever it might be. Those are very popular consumer devices or business devices as well. I mean, where does this thing kind of fall into the mix? And I think ultimately, for something that is in fact a paid subscription service, which is a new thing for consumers. Consumers typically would just get Office with a computer, and then would use that version of Office until they got another computer, and then they kind of got it, the next version there. It's a different model, and so the upfront costs are lower, but it's an ongoing cost, and for a lot of people, the next year comes around, and do they resubscribe? It's something Microsoft doesn't talk about a lot, but ultimately, I feel that given the type of service it is in fact very successful for what it was, and Kirk told me that there would be some new numbers coming soon, and because part of the controversy was that they had said, I think it was 70 million.
Yeah.
Just as kind of a throwaway line, 70 million Office 365 commercial subscribers, but that number dates back to May. That was actually something they had announced in a previous quarterly earnings report. It was not a new number. So the new numbers are coming in October, I think, sometime.
Yeah, I think probably in earnings, right?
Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the biggest news of the show, Padre.
Yep.
You ready?
Hit me.
Paul got the new Outlook.com yesterday.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I actually...
He stood up in the press room. I'm not making this up. And went, woo!
And everyone looked at me.
Everyone turned, and I'm like...
I got Outlook.com, and they're like...
Okay. Yeah. It was,
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I don't really use Outlook.com.
After all those complaints of not having it.
Well, no, I mean, they moved it to an Office 365 type infrastructure, but I think more important, for a user, they moved it to an Office 365 type user experience. I like Office 365. So to me, this is a more professional, more usable interface. So
right.
I think it looks great.
Yeah.
I apparently am some kind of a minority there, but I
like it.
I like
it.
Yeah,
good.
I like it.
Yeah. I have the robot banner.
I wasn't completely offended by it. I mean, it looks nice.
Fine.
It works the same way.
Yeah.
Your quote will be in a review or like in a TV commercial. I wasn't completely offended by it. Yeah.
Well, I fear change. I mean, you know this. On my computer,
Oh, yeah.
I'm still using Office 2007.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I for email in particular, I actually prefer to use web clients to local clients
Really?
when I can. On PC certainly. So to me, like that interface is important, because that is actually how I use the service. So
Yeah.
I like it quite a bit.
Good. Good. I'm glad.
I'm the other way. I get so much fear, so much anxiety of losing connectivity. I'm always on an application, not a web client.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mary Jo?
I kind of use both. Like I use Outlook Mobile on my phone as the actual app.
I do too.
But on my PC, I use plain old Outlook, like the app.
Really?
And I'll use Outlook.com if I'm doing something specific in that account, but mostly I use regular old Outlook, the app.
The biggest problem with the new Outlook.com is that it gives me one less thing to complain about. And a huge part of my ego and personality is about complaining.
It is.
I don't know.
What next?
I don't know.
What
What am I
don't you
gonna do?
have?
I know.
Yeah.
I just checked my Outlook.com account. I just realized I got the upgrade like a month ago.
You never noticed?
I never noticed.
Incredible.
Okay.
Folks, when
Actually,
we come back,
a lot of people don't notice it.
Mary Jo, Paul, you guys want to take some questions from the Ignite audience? Because I mean, they've been around for a while. They've been faithful.
Sure.
I think it's time to let their voices
I think we
be
should
heard.
take questions from the audience for sure.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Well, we're going to do that, but first, let's take another break because we have to thank another sponsor of this episode of Windows Weekly. Now, let me ask you something. Do you like working with 14.4 modems? Are you a big fan of ArcNet networking? How are those 286 servers doing for you? Well, of course, you don't have any of that gear because that gear is old and obsolete. We don't want to use that in our IT shops anymore. So if that gear is gone, why are you still using an intranet from the 90s? Folks, you don't have to suffer in silence. I know that intranet looked good when you first got it, giving you access to the tools and the information that you needed to do your job. But now, in the age of the internet, in the age of good UI, it doesn't just look dated, it looks wrong. And that's why we're so happy to have Igloo as a sponsor of Windows Weekly. Quite simply, Igloo is an intranet that you'll actually like. It brings together everything and creates a single destination that lets you focus on your work. It's a modern intranet designed to keep everything on the same page. You can share files, have real conversations in real time, and do it all while still being able to use the apps that you currently use, like Box, Google Drive, and Skype. It understands that work is no longer a location where you have to be in the cubicle or the office next to your coworker. Your teams can be together even though they're half a world away from each other. Now, Igloo is a cloud platform that helps you share those files, collaborate on documents, blog updates, coordinate calendars, and manage your projects. Anybody can add content, of course, based on their permissions, with drag-and-drop widgets and a WYSIWYG editor. It also offers a variety of access, authentication, and identity services to ensure that only authorized users have access in private clouds over SSL and with 256-bit encryption. Now, unlike other solutions, you can customize Igloo to fit your needs and work with your current IT investments. It's not a forklift upgrade where you're going to have to get rid of everything that you've purchased before. You can use Igloo with Office 365, Salesforce, SharePoint, Active Directory, file sharing solutions like Google Drive and Box, and support systems like Zendesk. In other words, it's a tool that works the way you want it to work. Now, folks, you can try it for free. Just go to igloosoftware.com/twit. That's igloosoftware.com/twit, or sign up for a live demo to see it in action. Now, when you sign up through our link, you can get your own Igloo for up to 10 people absolutely free for as long as you want. Once again, go to igloosoftware.com/twit. igloosoftware.com/twit. And we thank Igloo for their support of Windows Weekly. All right, I never know how this goes. I'm going to rely on your charm and your relationship with the audience. Who gets to ask questions first?
Anyone who wants to come up to the microphone.
Where's the microphone?
It's right. You can't see it. I don't know. Can you? Yeah. So actually, you can just come up, right?
Is Greg Edwards here?
Right here.
Okay. I didn't recognize you from your Twitter thing, so I'm going to... Sorry. Because you were here the other day. Yeah, okay. Because I saw that later on Twitter, and I thought, I didn't see this guy. But, okay. I apologize.
So, ask away.
Hi, my name is Sean. I'm from Colorado. Nice to see you guys. My question is about Microsoft and their openness. In several sessions, they've been talking about stuff that is not even available yet, that's coming through next year. And we actually heard it from Microsoft in sessions talking about different technologies like Azure AD Connect and Desire State Config stuff that's coming down the line. So do you feel overall Microsoft is being more open in actually telling us what's coming and when it might be coming, or do you kind of feel like that's kind of been
I think it varies from group to group.
I do too. Right. I think some of the teams are way more open than others. Like the SharePoint OneDrive team posting that roadmap, that's pretty open. You know, the hardware team, Surface, you know, they're not likely to try to tell us what's coming because that's a little more consumer focused and they want to kind of have some thunder when they actually announce the stuff. Right. So I think it does vary, but I do like seeing them be more open about, you know, here's like having stand-ups, so like the ASP.NET people do sometimes and the .NET framework guys, Scott Hanselman guys, they do these stand-ups where it's open to the community and they talk about like, what are we adding to .NET Core, right? So I think it's a very refreshing change and I like seeing it.
Yeah, and openness takes different forms, right? I mean, it's one thing to be open about here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But a better form of openness in some ways is to say, here's what we think we're going to do, provide some feedback on that, and let's let you help us shape this thing. And you see it in very dramatic degree with Windows and Office and less degree elsewhere. But I think that's starting to change. I think the success of the Insider program on Windows, for example, has led other groups at Microsoft to come to them and say, how do we do this? You know, how do we structure this like you're doing it and provide the people who are actually going to be using these products with a voice in the creation of new features and future versions. That's really important.
Great.
You know, it's not like dictated from down high,
Yeah.
like, you know, Apple Mount Olympus or whatever.
Thank you.
Also, if we could get the audience members to get a little closer to that mic, we're just getting a tiny bit of it over here.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't be shy. Somebody else.
You've been sitting there for an hour and a half.
I know.
It's time to get up and be counted.
If only to stretch your legs.
Right.
I don't really have a question. As a female, I should probably represent
Yes,
the
you
female
should.
population here at Ignite. I do have a comment, and I have to say I'm impressed to know that it took you 45 minutes to get from A to C, because I kind of thought you had like secret passages that could be of ease with you.
Yeah.
So I'm impressed.
I thought you were going to say something like, it only took me 20 minutes, fatty. What do you know? All right, okay.
No, the logistics in here are challenging. There's
Yeah.
escalators and elevators. You have to go up and down to like get to different floors. Yesterday, you know that really, really long escalator that's in here? I got on it. It
Yeah.
went up like an inch, and then it broke down.
Yep.
And everybody in front of me started going forward. I'm like, wait, can't we go back? So, yeah, it's tough.
This place is unbelievable. Yeah. I had a vague memory of this from the last time TechEd was here.
Yeah, me too.
Whatever that was, several years ago.
Yep.
And you kind of block it out how bad it's crazy how
Yeah.
big this place is.
Yeah. Anyone else? It doesn't have to be about Ignite. It can be,
It could be about Forza Horizon. It could be,
right?
You could ask Mary Jo about the secrets of beer making.
yeah.
You could.
You have
Well,
you have a really
this
shy
is a-
audience over there, I think.
We do.
Hold on, we got one more.
No, come on. Yes.
So, so one question that I have as a Windows enthusiast and a home user, said it's not going to be about Ignite necessarily, is when's Microsoft really going to tackle the home automation space and start bringing everything together with Cortana, right? When am I going to be able to like ask my Xbox to, automate tasks in my house and have a more, I don't know, coherent strategy for that kind of thing?
Sure.
I am stunned they haven't done this yet.
Yeah, me too.
I remember they bought a company a couple of years ago that was in, they had like a home automation platform that could work with Xbox, and we never heard about anything from that again. And I have not heard anything. I kind of keep digging around to see, like, they must be doing something, right? But I haven't found anything.
I sort of feel, it's funny. I sort of feel, I see this in a lot of places, and I think this is one of them. HoloLens is one of these too, where I get the feeling that they put out the things that make it possible, and they expect third parties to step in and just make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think this is an area where maybe like Surface, where they create these devices that are aspirational for the sort of forward-leaning type computing devices they think are possible and should be made, and then can influence other companies to do the same. They should be doing that for exactly this thing. And I'm very confused why they don't do that.
Same. I don't know.
They're like, we put out Flow, just make your own Flow.
Yeah,
Right.
well, we have Windows IoT. Can't you?
Right.
Yeah,
Program something. Make your own home automation bot.
Right.
Right.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
confused by that too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Paul and Mary Jo, does it make sense for Microsoft to look at creating a dedicated hardware widget for Cortana? Because yes, it works.
Right.
It works on my computer. It works on my Windows Phone. It works on my Xbox. But some people don't want that. They want something like the Amazon Echo or the Dot, where you
know.
could have multiple units around the house. Is it time Microsoft got into that game, or that's no, we're not doing that?
Well, this could tie into the home automation thing he was just
for
talking
sure.
about. Rather than having a device that's somewhere in your house in a particular location, although that can be useful, why not just have it be everywhere in your house?
Right.
That the point should be that whatever the little control panel is, maybe that's in most rooms in your house, that could be the Cortana voice control touch point.
Yeah. But no, we haven't heard anything like anything equivalent to Cortana, Dot, or any. I haven't heard any talk about that at all.
Nothing.
But maybe just thinking aloud, it's because Microsoft is emphasizing more and more the business case and not so much consumer.
Yep.
I could see it fitting in with what they do with Xbox. Like maybe the Xbox hardware team does something like that,
Sure.
but not the Surface team in general.
Sure.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. We have another question.
Yeah, I'm a proud owner of a Zune, and now a proud owner of Zune 2,
Nice.
the Microsoft band.
Sure.
I was wondering, is it the Zune 2? What have you been hearing?
Yes.
It's looking like it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's looking that way. What we've been told is that there is still work being done in wearables. The wearable or wearables won't be another band.
Sorry. Sorry.
She's a violent woman.
I keep hitting him and he's not dying.
But yeah, it's hard to say. In some ways, the Microsoft band was an experiment, right? They very purposely didn't sell it out in the world at first, especially. And it was, in many ways, like a Surface device. What happens when you throw 11 sensors into a device, you collect all this data, and how awesome could that be? And they obviously had reliability problems with the first version. We thought they would have figured that out for the second version, and over time it appears not so much. And that's too bad because it's a really high-quality device. But it seems that way.
At the keynote on Monday, Yusuf Mehdi was wearing a white band.
Right.
And so a lot of people were tweeting to us like, okay, there it is, band 3. But it's not that.
No.
That's the band they give employees, right? So that's why that's the white band.
Right.
So we are not hearing any rumblings at all about a new band this year, and I'm not even hearing about it for next year.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of Microsoft employees with Fitbits on. So
Sure.
Yeah,
I think
I know.
that might be the new Microsoft
I know,
band.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
It's a collector's item, though.
Bye soon.
Like your Zune.
That's what we're all shooting for, was to buy collector's items.
I used to have a chocolate Zune, and I
The
got
brown.
lost in a move somewhere, and I actually kind of miss it. I wish I still had it around on my desk.
Yeah, it was a beautiful device.
Really? Well, no. I won one. I won mine at a CES.
so well on you agreeing with me.
that was the end.
Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm a developer, and I've been kind of following Azure Stack and previously before that Azure Pack, which they had. And it's been really interesting to see the developments in that space. And my organization right now is going through a huge push to the cloud. But I have to wonder if there's not going to be some sort of pendulum with a swing back the other way, where it's going to be really beneficial to have a truly hybrid scenario. Especially, I think, a lot in the manufacturing space where you really can't afford to have downtime due to network connectivity outages to your Azure cloud. So, I don't know. I feel like a lot of organizations are pushing out, but I just get this feeling like it's going to swing somewhere back in the middle long term.
You know what? Well, I sort of agree with you, but I think that this move toward cloud-type infrastructure ultimately is going to benefit even those who do. If I don't know how many will swing back to a hybrid thing per se, but the things that Microsoft has learned from pure cloud have impacted on-prem and hybrid as well, right? And so the design of something like Windows Server 2016 today is very different than it would have been had the cloud never happened.
Yeah.
So even if companies of the future that have, or companies that have now moved to the cloud want to in the future retain or go back to some sort of hybrid thing, it's really going to be sort of like that, Azure in a box type thing.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, it won't be the same kind of pain
Right.
that you have, migrating from one type of, from the on-prem to the cloud.
Right.
I was hearing Mark Rusinovich talk about how they're managing the whole box down to even the driver firmware for the disks.
Right.
I mean, it's completely encapsulated and taken care of for you, which is pretty nice. So,
right. And so I think if that is necessary in the future for companies that have gone pure cloud, I bet it's not as painful.
Yeah.
Right.
That's, that might take away from that.
Right. Plus, they changed the direction of Azure Stack, right? At first, it was going to be anybody can bring their own hardware and just run this thing on it. And now they, like you said, they've gone back and they said, we really need to control every step of this.
It has to be like Windows Server Data Center, where it's a controlled environment.
Right.
Yeah.
So will it make people kind of steer away from the cloud? I don't know. I feel it's almost a stepping stone to the cloud because you'll get used to the way things work in Azure Stack, and then you'll be like, okay, now I'm a little braver about trying it or connecting it to Azure.
Cool. Thanks.
You're welcome.
He was getting attacked by a fly.
I know.
too.
I saw. There's a fly. That fly.
Pete from Australia. By the way, I've still got 3 accounts on Outlook.com, the old one, so you're not the last.
Wow.
we've seen over the last few years the shift from Azure Cloud to more hybrid scenarios, I think, to bring organizations up to speed who said, we want to make sure that we can go at the pace that we want. You mentioned before about the increasing number of feature changes and updates to Office 365. Mark Krasinovich has said that Office 365 is the gateway drug to Azure.
Yep.
Is there a danger that they're going to run ahead, Microsoft are going to run ahead of where businesses want to be again, and with these rate of change of Office 365, businesses, large organizations say, our change control can't cope with this, we need to put a lid on it?
Well, okay, so this is not something I have a lot of personal experience with because obviously I'm an enterprise of one, but they do have those controls in Office 365. I mean, again, this is one of those things where Microsoft came up in the world the way they did, and so they have this understanding this is what enterprises want. And so they have the first release program, they have ways to defer updates and so forth. And
it's what they want, whether they like it or not, though.
Well, the way I would say it is, you're going to upgrade eventually, right? Those features are going to come online at some point, but the bigger you are, frankly, the more control you have over the speed at which those things can happen. I should say maybe the slowness at which those things can happen.
Yeah.
And so if you're a small business and you sign up for these $99 per user a year accounts, you're going to get new features. Sorry.
Right.
If you're a big enterprise, E5, whatever, you have more control over that kind of stuff. And I think that's Microsoft is never going to force enterprise customers to do things that they don't want to do. There's a second half of this sentence. Right away.
Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, they are.
Just let that one hang there.
Yeah. I mean, there is an Office 365 deferred channel for commercial customers, I think.
Yeah.
But they don't have like a long-term servicing branch.
Yeah, but only for so long, yes.
Right.
Yeah, well, but I bet that evolves over time. And again, I think Windows is the thing that will impact everything else. You know, you look at how, I wonder sometimes how Microsoft handles the complexity, right? So something as simple as Windows 10, which has 3 versions that they're supporting, right? The RTM, the 1511, and the 1607. Do we just keep adding numbers onto this? And how do you figure that? I mean, we're almost getting, they want to keep this simple, right? They want it to be better than it was in the past. And it is, but at some point you wonder when it isn't, right?
Sure, but the feature updates for Windows, you've got those 3 versions. The feature updates you're seeing for Office 365
I know, they're
are
crazy.
monthly drops.
I know. They're coming fast.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they don't need to evolve that to meet those needs. Yeah,
I would think they're going to have something that slows it down. I will say that because I think if enough big customers say, look, we just cannot do this.
Yeah, and they said to me very frankly, we do have a hard time keeping track of it. I think it surprised them how much they were able to do.
I mean, they want you on the latest version because the theory is you'll be the happiest if you have all the latest features.
Well,
right.
But then you've got to train the users and
Yes,
get the training out and make sure the training's not out of date.
I know, that's right.
But it also has, this is all tied back to the notion of, what are the benefits of Office 365 is that you have everything. And so it allows them to develop these solutions in tandem. In the past, you couldn't do too much to SharePoint that impacted other parts of the stack because not everyone had those things.
Right.
And vice versa, and so part of it is just the simplicity of serviceability, right, and maintenance and so forth.
I think it's all right if you're all in, but if you're in a heterogeneous environment.
Enterprises tend to be all in on new stuff.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, careful.
Anybody else?
No.
Was
Could
the
do back
Aussie
of
the
the
end
book.
of it?
Yep, looks like it's the end of the questions, but we have the back of the book.
Oh, I love the back of the book. I especially love our tips and our picks. Oh, by the way, Mary Jo, when it comes time, Tony has dropped off what will be your beer pick of the week. Because
whether you want it to be or not,
there is no beer, no real beer that doesn't include, let's see, barley malt, hops, rice, and alcohol.
Rice. Rice?
Some beers have rice.
Polani rice. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm assuming it makes it very Asian.
I think, is today like National Drink Beer Day or something?
Isn't every day National Drink Beer Day?
Yeah, it is, but I think today might be a special day.
I just felt my liver when you said that.
You know what? Last week we got to talk about Skype for life, and so I'm glad that there's a little bit of Skype-ness in our pick. Who wants to talk about Skype for iOS?
I do.
That guy.
So we kind of we talked about the Windows Hello stuff earlier. My tip was just that you should consider a Windows Hello. Why do I keep doing that? A Windows. It's weird. It's like a form of Tourette's. A Windows Hello type sign-in functionality for your computer. I mean, obviously, new computers come with them in some cases, but if not, one of these peripherals is kind of interesting. From an app perspective, I have a bunch of them this week. Microsoft just today updated Skype for iOS, added a ton of stuff. Siri integration, you can access your phone calls over the lock screen like a phone call. So in other words, if someone calls you on Skype and your phone is locked, you can answer it and get into the conversation. So that stuff's kind of cool. Also on iOS, sometime in the past week, they updated Microsoft Authenticator for iPhone to add push notification support. I think it's only for Microsoft accounts, by which I definitely mean literally Microsoft accounts. It might also be for Azure as well. But what that means is if you have to log into a site, you require the second form of authentication. The app will pop up a notification on the phone, and you can just accept it from there. You don't have to type in a code, which is really, really nice. And that is the thing that I use. And I think the one on Android already offers push notification support. I could be wrong about that, but it will be coming across all the platforms, including Windows Mobile at some point. The app Raisin Mobile Pick of the Week is Instagram for Windows 10 Mobile. That was updated this week with Pinch to Zoom. We've been enjoying that on iOS and Android for some time. Well, actually not that much time. It's been a couple weeks, but that came to Windows Mobile pretty quick, so that's cool. And then Forza Horizon 3 shipped this week for Xbox One and Windows 10, the second Xbox Play Anywhere game. There are 3 versions that cost anywhere from $60 to $100, depending on how much you like to drive cars on your computer. And I also wanted to mention that I talked about this game called Firewatch last week. I played through the first part of it, which is like day 1 of the story on the PlayStation 4 back in the spring, and was blown away by it. It came out on the Xbox One this past week, and I played through the whole game in about a day and a half. And it's actually, it kind of goes downhill from the beginning, unfortunately. So it's still good, but the whole game is not as awesome as the beginning. So I guess what I would say is you might want to wait for it to drop in price a little bit before you buy it, because I know I was super excited about it.
Good God.
Would
Ready?
you hit me, please?
All right.
No. It's unbelievable. All right. And actually, that's all. Yeah, so that's everything. Right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, Paul, you're not particularly excited by Forza or Firewatch. You're more of a Call of Duty person, right? But I mean, do they at least capture the imagination?
Oh, by the way, both of these games are beautiful. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful games. And Firewatch, I still, it's still good. I don't mean it's not good. It's a good game, but it really had that kind of incredible, possible best game of the year kind of feel to it. When you play through the first day, it's such a compelling story. And then it just kind of, it just doesn't have the, it just doesn't kind of end up in the right kind of, bang at the end like you would kind of hope for. Actually, since you mentioned Call of Duty, I will say in the past week, Call of Duty 3 and Call of Duty World at War, which are the last 2 World War II era Call of Duty games, both hit Xbox One backwards compatibility as well. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Mary Jo Foley,
Yeah.
Enterprise Pick of the Week.
My enterprise pick of the week is another partnership that Microsoft announced besides the Adobe partnership this week. They announced a deal with Workday, and Workday is a company that makes HR software and services as well as finance software and services for small businesses. What they said they're going to do is more tightly integrate Office 365 with Workday, so they're working in tandem on this. So if you're one of the 1,000 plus shops that happen to be both a Microsoft customer and a Workday customer, you're going to be able to see things like notifications from Office groups show up in Workday and vice versa. They're going to be integrating more technologies from Workday with the Microsoft Graph. And all of this is going to start happening around the second quarter of 2017. So what's very interesting about them announcing this week is Microsoft also has something that kind of competes with Workday, which is Dynamics 365, their new ERP CRM service that's coming out. And they announced this right before they're launching the small business financial module of Dynamics 365. So yet another kind of proof point that the new Microsoft is very different from the old Microsoft. They're actually working with their competitors. And I don't know what the Dynamics team felt like when they saw this announcement this week. Probably weren't having cake to celebrate it, but
they haven't even released the first version of the product, right?
Right, pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting partnership, and probably will be very welcomed by a number of small business customers. So it's not technically an enterprise pick, but it's a business pick this week.
Before we get to the code name pick of the week, we do have a special request from the chat room. They would like to know how you're liking your HP Spectre.
So this is a loaner device that I got from HP a couple months ago. When I was having trouble with my Acer S7, I happened to be having lunch with someone from HP who loaned me this. And I have to say, I really like this device. It's so light. It's so light. And all week at the show, people have been asking me if they could hold it and pick it up. Because when you see it on the side, you're just like,
Yeah.
wow. And it's very light. Then the battery life's like 5 to 6 hours on it right now for me. And I am liking it. The interesting thing, no touch on this machine, which I don't miss myself. But yeah, it's a really good machine. I'm very happy with it. And I have to say, I wasn't always a fan of HP hardware, but this is kind of changing my mind on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know, I when I first started getting touch laptops, I always thought this is a gimmick. I'm never going to use this. I have found myself using it more and more often.
Yeah.
It's a regular part of my interface, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I use the touchpad on it a lot. The touchpad's decent, at least. So yeah, it's nice. Very nice.
And there you go, chat room. See, that was just for you. What about the code name pick of the week?
So I like how Paul has annotated my codename pick in the notes. The codename pick is Project Springfield, which Paul said, Project Rick Springfield? No.
Dusty.
Oh.
Yeah.
Springfield, Massachusetts.
Right. So I'll tell you a funny thing. So Springfield, Massachusetts, we're both from Massachusetts, so that came to our mind immediately when we heard this. But no, the team said they just picked the name Springfield because they had to pick a city code name, and they liked Springfield. They thought it was a cool sounding name. So it doesn't actually have a city significance. But what it is a bug detector service that Microsoft is developing from some technology that they had in Microsoft Research. So there was a thing in Microsoft Research called Sage. And Microsoft was using this internally to thwart bugs in Windows and other products before the products were launched. So you can actually use this to intentionally see if you can crash a system with a certain bug. It's like a proactive type bug tracking system. They do something that Padre probably knows what this is. I don't really know what this means. White box fuzzing.
Jeez.
I
don't know what that means.
Is that like beatboxing, making sounds?
I don't think it's like beatboxing.
Turns out he doesn't know what it is.
Because you know a lot about security, so I thought maybe you had heard of this. But this is the kind of testing that it enables people to do. So instead of just keeping this internal and making it something Microsoft themselves are only using, they're taking Project Springfield and they're actually going to commercialize this and make it available to customers as an Azure service.
It sounds like Stuxnet.
Yeah.
Let's throw this in a centrifuge and see what it does.
Right, see what happens.
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah, so I don't know when this will be coming out, but they are privately testing it with some enterprise customers right now who are interested in it, and they're actually allowing anybody who wants to get an early access to the preview to sign up as of this show. So if you have a company and you think, hey, this might be really cool to try out, you should give it a whirl. What was cool for me at the show is one of the first customers using this is Deschutes Brewing.
Right.
And they came and were part of my meeting about it, and they actually brought me beer. So that was pretty cool.
Beer's good.
We might have a drinking problem,
I know. I might. I didn't drink it during the meeting.
Yeah.
I kept it for later. But, yeah.
If you had
so
a drinking
that's
problem,
what
you'd
Springfield
both
is.
be under the table right now. I think you're fine.
Yeah, we would.
Right?
I
You've got
think
to
we're
work.
okay.
It's all good.
You can't tell how I'm gripping this table, but sure.
We could use my analytics to see how you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's the codename pick of the week.
Well, it's good that we talked a little bit about high-functioning alcoholism because now we've got the beer pick of the week.
Yeah. So we have to do an Atlanta beer pick since we're all here.
Right.
We got to go visit a brewery
Oh, by the way, shocker, Mary Jo took me to a brewery.
I took him to a brewery
Yeah.
in Atlanta. It's called Orpheus Brewing. If you have any time and you just get in an Uber and go out there for like $10, it's an amazing brewery. They have all different kinds of styles. They have saisons, they have IPAs, double IPAs. I think they have a stout.
Yep.
They have everything, and really nice people, good brewery. And we had a beer there called Atalanta. That is a really nice saison, really excellent. It's a tart plum saison.
Was this the
one the guy called blue cheese?
Blue cheese. He said, he said, I taste blue cheese. I said, you might be having a stroke.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually brought a guy with us who didn't like beer, and he got this, and he's like, you guys, this tastes like blue cheese.
It tastes like grapefruit. You're
I'm like, no, it doesn't.
You might want to
at
see
all.
a doctor.
But I would, if you see Orpheus anything on tap, I would recommend them highly.
Yeah. Also, there was an awesome food truck outside.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
And various forms of corn dogs, which I know doesn't sound good, but it was actually like cornbread outside and whatever. It was,
deep fried.
Yeah, it was
yeah. I had a pickle corn dog.
pork.
They put a pickle on a stick and they put it in a cornbread batter, deep fried it, and I ate it off the stick. It was great.
Yep.
And we had 3 British friends with us, and they had never heard of or seen or tried a corn dog.
It was like coaxing a little mammal out of a hole, but once they realized how awesome it was,
They were digging in.
they were all over it.
Yeah.
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 You know, DC basically runs on the food trucks, and I understand the allure of a corn dog, but for me, there's nothing quite like a decent Mediterranean food truck that does gyros. Gyros on a warm day with a cold drink. There we go.
Cuban sandwiches are good, tacos, whatever.
I'm so down. I'm so down. Also, you've got a meetup, so if people want to see your brew and beer making prowess in person, they could show up. It's just in a couple of hours from here, right? Like an hour away.
Yep, 5 to 8 tonight.
Yeah, it's not an hour away, but it's
No.
I mean, an hour away time-wise. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yes.
It's only a short ride away, but it's called Argosy East. It's a really cool craft beer bar. They're ready for all of us to descend on them.
And make sure it's Argosy East.
Right. I think
Not
they have
the
more
other
than
Argosy.
one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 5 to 8 tonight, we're going to be there. Anybody can come. You don't have to even be at Ignite. If you're watching this and you're in Atlanta, you can also just show up and come. No RSVP needed.
Yeah.
Come drink beer with us and hang out. Yeah, hang out with all the other cool people who are coming. Lots of other people from the press, I think, may show up. Friends.
Yeah, I hope so.
So yeah, and we have to mention this.
Mm-hmm.
Today is the 10th anniversary of Windows Weekly.
That's true.
I just saw that. I can't believe it.
I know. He's been doing this 10 years. I think I've only been doing it 4 years.
I didn't have gray hair when it started.
But yeah, 10 years, geez.
Yeah. I might have told the story, but I distinctly remember the day we were about to go on our first home swap, and the family from France was in my house, and we were showing them around, and the phone rang, and I remember thinking, whoever that is, it doesn't matter. I'm with the people from France. And I looked down and it said Leo Laporte, and I said, I need to take this. So I told Leo, I said, look, I'm about to go to France for 3 weeks, so let's start it up when I get back. And that's why it happened in September instead of August, I guess, or whatever. But I don't know where they were exactly when this happened. They were well, I know they were physically in the original cottage, which I did visit eventually. Mm-hmm. I know they had a few shows. I think they had Mac Break Weekly and probably the main, Twitch show. I'm not really sure, but I don't actually listen to any of these podcasts. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll just say too about this whole thing is that I sometimes have people come up to me and say, I feel like I know you, and because you talk about yourself a lot because you're really egotistical or whatever. And that was my reaction to Leo. Like I had watched Leo on Tech TV. I had watched him on the site.com, the MSNBC show when that channel launched back in the, mid to late 90s, I guess. And the thing about those shows that was interesting to me was that I was never going to learn anything from these shows. I knew that. I was more technical than the audience they were shooting for. But he was so personable and interesting and clearly knew his stuff. Like I just left it on. I would just be doing stuff on the computer or whatever, and I would leave these shows on. And I just, it was interesting, to, just start working with Leo. It was like, yeah, I feel like I've known this guy for a long time. It was just an easy transition,
Nice.
I think you've just described the Twit experience for pretty much everyone who works here. We all saw Leo.
Sure.
We all got brought in by that. Of course,
Yeah.
Windows Weekly has been around for a decade, but it only took 4 years for Mary Jo Foley to physically strike you.
Well,
it might be your
actually,
first, isn't
I don't know. You've hit me before.
I think I have.
This is our secret shame. Don't stop hitting me.
Well, you're going to have to celebrate properly when Leo gets back here in 2 weeks. But until then, it's been an absolutely phenomenal ride. Thank you very much for giving us the action straight from Ignite in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody who came
Yeah,
today. That
thanks
was
very
awesome.
much.
Thanks.
I don't know how you found this place.
I don't either.
We did everything we could to make it impossible to find. Thank you.
Oh, Mary Jo Foley, of course, you are the mastermind behind All About Microsoft, the blog on ZDNet. Is there anything that you want to point us to, any articles you've been working on, any special secrets that you're going to be releasing out into the public?
No, but I have a tip for anybody who lives in Seattle. Next week, I'm going to be in Seattle because I'm going to be at the GeekWire Summit speaking. So if you're in Seattle and you want to hang out or come to the GeekWire Summit and hang out, that'd be awesome.
Oh, and if you want to find me next week, I'll be in a fetal position in my cellar because I'm really tired.
No, seriously, he wasn't joking about that.
No, he wasn't.
Don't laugh. It's sad.
Well, Paul, when you're not in a fetal position, where can we find you?
Well, I mean, I'm at Thurrott.com and at Thurrott on Twitter because it's so easy to spell.
There we go.
Yeah.
Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley, they drive our lust for Windows, Microsoft news, everything about the cloud, about the enterprise, and of course, about Call of Duty. I want to thank you for making it so easy for me to host while Leo has been gone. Now, folks, you can catch the show live every Wednesday at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, or you can watch it on demand at twit.tv/WW for Windows Weekly. Also, don't forget that you can find Windows Weekly wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. And please, if you feel the need, subscribe so you can get all the Windows Weekly goodness downloaded into your device of choice every week. Until next time, have a great day. I'm Father Robert Ballecer, and this has been Windows Weekly.